Welcome back to More Than a Mill Spouse, the podcast for military spouses who want to love their lives without losing themselves. Today's guest is Samantha Mans, who I had the pleasure of meeting recently. Samantha shared a little bit about her story with me, and I knew I wanted to bring this onto the podcast because Samantha, like so many of us, is a military spouse who has moved frequently and has tried to figure out how do you keep your own identity in this military lifestyle. So, Samantha, first of all, welcome to the show. Would you
Yeah,
just start us off by introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about who you are and what you're passionate about?
I can do that. Thank you for having me. Um, I am a military spouse now of 13 years. I always have to do that math a little bit. We started our journey a little different than some. My husband did 5 years in National Guard before he went active duty. So we've seen kind of two sides of that coin a little bit. When we were when he was in the Guard, um, we kind of focused a lot on my career, honestly. I was working in the hospitals. My background is a CT and X-ray tech. And so I was working full time and he was doing guard and then working another job. And that's where we were in life. And then he was deployed about a year after we got married. And that deployment posed an opportunity for him to go active duty. It was during that call to active duty that they had back in, I want to say it was like 2017 or something like that. And so he was accepted on that. Kind of a weird turn of events. He was sent home early from his deployment, which almost never happens, to report 2 days later as active duty. So it was a very quick turnaround of, I haven't seen you really for 9 months. You're going to come home for 2 days, and then you have to go turn in all of your gear to get new gear reissued. And the turn in, we lived in Wisconsin, the turn in was way north in Minnesota. And then he was actually reporting where we live now, which was Leonardwood. Um, and then I stayed at my job for like another 3 months before I actually followed him down here because I was a little heartbroken to leave my job at that point because that is where a lot of my identity sat. It's what I went to school for, what my passion was, which was helping people. And being a military spouse now on the active duty side, not currently working in the hospital, but I've done some hospital work depending on the bases that we're at, um, and other medical work too, depending on the base that we're at. Um, has really evolved into where can I put that passion of helping others um, forward. So I volunteer a lot. I built my own company after we came back from Germany based on switching that perspective shift and helping find my identity, but also really focusing on the gratitude I can have for the pieces of this life. The gratitude doesn't take away from some of that hardship, but it can help me get through that hardship just a little bit easier.
There's so much in what you shared, and I'm excited to unpack this with you. But take us back to what that conversation was like because you're already married, you're already building your career. What was that conversation like to say, hey, this is something I want to do? I want to pursue life active duty. And how did that go?
It was scary. um, we were very set in our life. We were dreaming about the fact that we were putting money away while he was deployed, and I was working a ton because he was deployed and we didn't have kids at the time. So I just did nothing but work and have overtime, and he was working. So we were at a point where we could save a lot of money at that point, and our dream was to build a house in Wisconsin, have kids, and that's where our life would set up. So it really did flip everything on its head. Now looking back, I would not change anything that we did for the world, honestly. Um, we have two amazing kids and we've had so many great opportunities because of that choice. But I know a lot of people say, like, well, you knew what you were getting into. I had a very active choice in us both going into this active duty military lifestyle, but I don't think anything would have prepared me for actually what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really common misconception. Like, yes, I actually did have an active choice in this, an opinion in it, but that doesn't mean you necessarily know what's going to happen. So that conversation, when I finally was like, yes, let's do it, he actually called me at work. It was crazy busy in the ER that day. My boss was very gracious and said, if your husband calls, I know he's in a different time zone. You only get a few minutes here and there with him. Like, you can answer your phone as long as you're not actively with a patient, and then just get back to work as quick as you can. I said, okay. So I quickly answered my phone. I was like, you got like maybe 3 to 5 minutes here, and that's all I can give you. And he's like, okay, well, this is what I want to do. I want to drop my packet. He's like, I'm ready for my packet. I've talked to my higher ups. I was like, I want to drop my packet and go active. And it's hard to explain, but like this incredible just peace came over me in that moment. And I just said, let's do it and see what happens. And we'll go from there.
So
And
did you have any idea that he was thinking about this?
a little bit, but not to the point where like he was ready to drop his packet. I mean, we had kind of talked about like, oh, maybe this is a possibility. Maybe we can look into this. But once that call to active duty came, it was like, you either drop your packet in the next like few days or you're going to miss the window. It was a very quick turnaround. Um, so like we knew that he kind of wanted to go active. That was always his original plan, and things just didn't go that way right out of college. Which was probably, a blessing in disguise too. But um, we it was just like this incredible peace that I just had like wash over me. And I was like, you know what, let's do it. Let's see what happens. If you're accepted, like we'll go from there and see what we need to do. Not knowing where we'd get placed or anything. I mean, my entire family still lives in Wisconsin, except for one person. So
Mm-hmm. So what was that like well, for a few months you're living apart and then you came down to join him. And what was that transition like for you?
um it was a little overwhelming for sure. Um, it was the first time our apartment at the time was being packed up. Um, and so, it was, I guess, kind of weird because, like, for me, I'm someone who really wants to be an active part in like everything. And so we had these movers come in, and they're like, no, you're not allowed to help us pack. I'm like, so I'm just supposed to sit on the couch and watch you do the work? Like, this is weird to me. And now I know like there's things that I can do before they get here and things like that. But that was the first time. So we
First
didn't know.
time is always the first time.
Yeah. And so yeah, they packed everything up. I drove like a carload of stuff at that point too, down to Missouri because it's about like a 7-hour drive. It wasn't too far. And I had the dogs with me still because we had 2 dogs at the time. Um, I just, drove up to our house and I was like, all right, this is our house. Like I had never seen it before. Um, I have yet to see a home that we are moving into prior to moving personally.
I mean,
And this is 6 moves
this
and 8
blows
years
people's
later.
minds when they've never been a military spouse.
Yeah.
But as a military spouse, I could be like, yes, I understand.
Mhm.
I can get
Yep.
that.
So like I've never personally seen a house before we signed for it. I guess this one I technically looked at, but we were already kind of like assigned this house. And I was like, well, like what are we gonna do? Say no now that they're ready to give us the keys? Like, no, because I don't want to go back on the wait list.
Right?
And so, pretty much it's whenever we get the keys, like that's when I'm seeing the house. Even when we bought a house at one duty station. But um, yeah, I mean it was a weird transition. We got the house set up pretty quick because at that time then I was done working. Um, and I did the first time I was here try to find a job in the local hospitals, which was a challenge. Like many spouses kind of run into, it is very much military area. So they look at my resume, they're like, well, you were up here for 5 years and now all of a sudden you're here. So why did you move from like a metropolitan Wisconsin area to the middle of nowhere, Missouri? Like I think that they were pretty good at connecting those dots.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just flat out said, like, we're not looking for someone who's only going to be here for 2 or 3 years. And I was like, okay. And then the other place did hire me. I worked there for a little bit. But then we got pregnant with my daughter, and I was seeing some things in that particular hospital that was not aligning with my values, especially in terms of employment safety, and keeping the employees safe as they're working. And I just said, I don't want to be a part of that. So,
So you stepped into motherhood for the first time
yes,
and unemployment for the first
yes.
time. Talk about what that experience was like and what that did to your identity.
Um, I felt lost, honestly, for a while. I was the one who was back in Wisconsin when he was in the Guard, financially supporting us in a larger capacity than he was. And we quite literally just did a 180 and flipped that. Um, and so it was really hard, mainly because I was like, well, what do I do with my time?
Mm.
It's like I'm
Mhm.
used to going to work for 8 to 10 hours at a time at a hospital, having a few days off here and there, sure, but like what do I do with all this time? And that is kind of when I started getting into some of the volunteering. Um, I didn't know it when I arrived, but I went to like a spouse's coffee and he's like, just try it, see if you meet someone, like whatever. Well, I walk into the spouse's coffee and all I see are three SFRG binders sitting on the table. And I was like, no, you sent me to an SFRG meeting. And he's like, well, I don't think I knew that at the time. And I was like, okay. But honestly, again, like it was great. Like the people were wonderful to work with. And we made some really positive things happen within the unit and and the battalion. And um, even though it was kind of a shock and my experience with SFRG, it was very different in the guard world, which is kind of why I was like, I don't know that I want to do this. Like, kind of all those preconceived notions that a lot of people end up having. And I realized that they weren't true, at least not about the people that I was with. And I think it really helped me open my eyes to like at every base, if it's worked before, I will try it at least 2 or 3 times again because you never know what good is going to come out of that.
Mhm.
Maybe it's not my jam or my place at that base, and that's okay. But I'm still going to try it because it's worked in the past. And then I'll decide from there versus just letting, the gossip or the talk try to deter what I'm doing.
Yeah, you never know what's going to be a good fit. And
Hmm.
if you close that door before you even try to walk through it, you
Yep,
might have missed out on something great. And so I think it's
exactly.
really important that you were able to say, let's just try it. And,
Hmm.
it might be a good fit, it might not,
Yep,
but we'll never know unless we try.
yep,
So, what
exactly.
are some of the practices that really helped you as you adjusted to this life?
For me, it's my daily gratitude practice, to be honest. So every single day, I write down anywhere from 3 to 5 small things that I'm grateful for. And now they've evolved over time because, of course, now we have kids. So maybe it's the fact that my kid, instead of being whiny the night before, was wanting to cuddle on the couch and hang out with me. Um, or like dinner went really, really smoothly and everyone actually ate. Like, like it's small things that, it's not just the I'm thankful for my family, because of course I am. But those little pieces, especially in some of the harder moments or the things that have been hard recently, um, like kids just not wanting to eat their food, it's driving me nuts. Um, like
Sounds
those
normal.
things, yeah, like those things though, like finding those little good pieces just help make that challenge a little bit easier to get through.
Mm,
So I pick 3 to 5 things every morning for that. And then I also have like an I am affirmation that I read. And then I usually kind of do like a 2 sentence, very short 2 sentence, like journal of like expanding on it.
mm. So, how did you step into these practices in the first place?
Yeah. Honestly, the gratitude practice started when my husband was deployed. It was like, what am I going to do with him being gone? Like we had been together for 5 plus years, and then we got married. So we were used to very much being around each other, talking to each other all the time. Um, and part of that was, my anxieties over him going away, of me now living by myself in an apartment because I had not honestly lived by myself before.
Mm-hmm.
I lived with roommates or my husband or my family. And so just anxiety that really bubbled up. Um, and it helped alleviate a lot of that. Um, Especially in talking with my doctor too, like we were honestly close to going on to anxiety medication, which I think is really helpful for a lot of people as well. And it can't be discounted. But some of what we discussed was that I maybe wasn't quite there yet, but might need it in the future, depending. And so coming to this gratitude practice and really just finding what worked for me that way helped alleviate a lot of that because it ended up nearly being like a prayer of mine every day. Thank you. Thank you, God. Like, this is what is in my life today. And it didn't make some of those worrisome things seem so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know because I did not stumble onto a gratitude practice until much later in my
Hmm.
journey. And I know that it would have made a huge difference because once I starting my day with just,
Hmm.
2 to 3 things that, hey, here's what I can be grateful for today. It began to completely shift the way that I looked at each and every day and to
Hmm.
move from this place of what's wrong with my life and what's not possible for me to shifting to say I have so many things that I can be thankful for and what is possible because of this life. It made a
Yes.
huge difference. But I remember being at that place as my husband went on his first deployments and being like, I am living in a house by myself for the first time in my life. And I don't know how to do this. And this is
Hmm.
making me really nervous and really anxious.
Yep. Yes. Very much so.
So, talk about how your practice has evolved over time. Because I know the things that I've tried, it always continues to evolve as I
Mhm.
learn new ways, new practices to incorporate. So, what does that look like for you?
Well, I tried so many different, you know, mainstream, I guess, gratitude practices. And most of them for me either took too much time or had too many extra things where I was like, the extra isn't helpful. And now, like, because I'm, you know, organized and kind of disciplined, like, if I see something in front of me, like, I have to do it all, I have to finish it all. Like, this is now almost a hindrance. It's not helping. So I needed something simpler to start. And I ended up just starting to write them in a blank journal, honestly. And I filled up a few different blank journals of all of this over the course of a number of years. And it was coming back from our time actually overseas in Germany. And I just had our second kiddo. And I was like, I have walked away from this for a little bit. And I can tell that my anxiety is rising again. I don't feel settled. I feel a lot more uncertain. And I needed that to like reground me essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So I heavily started it again. And I realized, you know what, this is so simple. I bet someone else also struggles with finding something that is simple and effective. And it's been effective for me for years. And that is where I started just designing the copy as well as the graphic design work. And I created my own published journal so that I could hopefully help others in the same way.
I mean, I think it's so important to share that we all have practices that we know help
Hmm.
us, but it's easy especially in seasons of transition when you're moving
Yeah.
or you're having a baby or your spouse
Mhm.
is deployed, all of these things that once you had that rhythm, that routine, and you knew it worked, and then you walk away from it.
Mhm.
And that's totally normal. And
Mhm.
also, once you've already been doing these routines, then you begin to notice so much more quickly, hey, something has shifted. Something
Yep.
that I was doing that was helping me, now that I'm not doing that, I can tell, and I can tell it much
Yes.
sooner. So it
Mhm.
helps me, hey, I'm no longer doing that. I need to start finding a way in my current season, in my current routine,
Mhm.
to add those practices back in, because now I know that makes a difference.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to say that I 100% do it every single day all the time, because there are seasons where I'm like, why do I feel so just chaotic even in my own brain? I'm like, I haven't done this for like a month, because
Mm.
it just slips away. Like I get it. Like you get busy. Kids, have sports or whatever. You're moving, you have something else in your husband's job that needs more of your time and attention at home because they're being pulled away. Like you said, there's just seasons where that happens, and it's normal and it's okay. And that's also why I create it where it's not dated, because I don't want someone to feel like they have to do it in some succession. Like if you do it consistently, even twice a week, it's still going to help better than not doing it at all.
Consistency matters, but
Hmm.
sometimes when it feels too overwhelming, we just give up. If I've missed
Hmm.
too many days and I'm having to skip ahead so many days, and
Yep.
that's where I prefer something that does not have that date. So it's just like,
Hmm.
okay, when I
Pick
can
it
do
back up
it,
when you
pick
can.
it back
Yep.
up. So talk
Yep.
about how you went from saying, hey, this helps me, to saying, I think I need to create this as a published book that other people can use.
I think part of that is just that passion of helping others, honestly. After having a second kiddo, moving from Germany back to the States, we went from a very tight knit military community overseas, dropping straight into a civilian community, not associated with a base back in the United States, and that was really really hard. Um, and we felt really lost and really lonely. So part of that was I knew that there were seasons where I need this more than I needed in others. And I know that other people by that time, we'd been then in the military for quite a while. Like I knew other people could truly use this. And I think it was from talking to people and sharing my passion more too,
Mm.
to see that this wasn't just a thing I needed. It didn't, I wasn't alone in how I was feeling. And I have a mom who has a history in graphic design. She's a communications director. So I was like, I called her up. I said, this is what I want to do. What programs do I use? How do I use them? And she kind of helped walk me through some of that. And then I created it that way. And so, like, I had some really nice resources too at my disposal, which helped.
That does help. But I think all of us, when we start to pay attention, there are people in our life that can help us take that next step towards whatever that passion, that dream is on our heart. And so for you to be able to call your mom and say, I have this idea,
Hmm.
help me take that next step.
Yep.
Just keeping your eyes out for what is it that, number one,
Hmm.
I'm passionate about, and number two, who is it in my life that can help me move towards that.
Yep. Yeah, I think I just had like that calling on my heart for a while, and I do truly, believe and trust that God's either going to open that door, or I also trust that he'll shut it if it's not the right time. And
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of kept showing like this is what you should do in this time. And I had the time. I was home with a newborn, which is not easy, but is relatively simple in the fact that my other daughter was at school all day and he slept a lot, which she did not when she was a baby. So, like, I did have the currency of time, which was helpful.
Mm-hmm. So talk about how your brand has grown and what's come out of putting this journal out.
Um, it's grown with, I mean, just in other products that help me. The affirmations that are in the book, I've taken and I've used some of what I personally will write on Expound upon, but also have made them not so personalized so that they can fit other people's lives as well. So I have an affirmation card deck that can help with that as well if you're not looking to write something. Um, Other products along that line, the actual goal setting planner that I used was something that I created with a team that I was working when I did some MLM work a long time ago. And so it had been like tested that way. And it was something that my team and I had actually created. And that was what I used to set my goals for starting my business. So I created a whole calendar goal setting planner around that. Because I do think setting goals that are not just a resolution at the beginning of the year, but goals that you can actually break down into some bite-sized pieces that you can take a daily or weekly action on are really
Mhm.
helpful to get to those goals. Whether you accomplish the whole goal in that year or not, it gets you, moving that needle closer. And I'm a goal person, goal oriented. I like doing that. But it's grown in the sense that I have my newsletters and my blog that comes out. So I give, tips, tricks, things that are working well for me. This fall, we did an entire series on adding some gratitude. We also did a morning mindfulness series, which was really cool in the newsletter, and had some really great feedback on. And it is continuing to grow in that I'm actually working on a specific military edition for the gratitude journal now, which I'm hoping I can get done by the new year. It's taking a lot of time, and just making sure that it's good to go. And part of that was in partnering with Plus One Heroes, which is a nonprofit, and helping them get resources into spouses' hands, especially at deployment times. So I'm
Mhm.
looking forward to hopefully getting that partnership more off the ground, but I had to write the journal first. So it's coming.
That's exciting. So, what is your big goal or dream for the future?
um, ooh, Scary one. My big goal and dream for the future, honestly, is to write a book that can use some of my experiences to help shift the mindset of the military spouse specifically and show more of the opportunities and the good that is in this life, even amongst some of the hardship.
I think it's amazing. I love asking guests this question because, it is across the board, but all of
Mm,
us seem to have this dream or some kind of thing on our heart. And when we can put it out there into the world, um, it just makes it more likely that it's going to happen. So I am excited for
mm,
you. And I would love for you just to speak to the military spouse who feels stuck or frustrated right now. What does it mean to have that perspective shift? Because we talk about like, hey, you move somewhere, it is what you make of it, but we don't always
mhm.
talk about how do you do that. So what
Right.
have been the mindset shifts that have been really helpful to you? Can you help make this practical?
Yeah. One of the things that I feel I do really well is being at a base until we're not. So once we have orders, I know a lot of people get really excited and they start looking through the Facebook groups or looking at what is at that next base. And to an extent, we do that because we have to plan certain pieces of that move, obviously. Um, but I don't stop doing volunteering, enjoying the pieces at the current base early. Those orders don't mean I'm leaving yet. So I make sure that I am still actively involved until basically that last minute where I can't be. And part of that is it helps me stay where I'm at and in the present. And the other part is that, I mean, at that point, you've built relationships and you love the people. And I don't want to move as much as the next person, but I know it's coming. So I want to make the most of that time. And then once we're at that new base, I really do dive right in. I joined the spouses club. I think that that's a great way to meet new people, meet a very large array of people, And they have some really great sub clubs. Those are usually the draw for a lot of people, and it's fun. PWOC is another go-to for me. I usually connect really well with people in the church. I grew up in the church. That's just my connection point with a lot of people. And so that is one of the first places that I make sure that I go at every new base, and try to get plugged in there. But I think too, it's just going outside your front door and meeting some of your neighbors. I mean, I will get lost in setting up the house very easily. And I have now just made a point of, hey, you know what? The kids are outside playing. Like, why don't I just go grab a lawn chair and sit outside too? Even if I bring a book with me, just having a presence outside, like you might see a neighbor and you can start chatting with them, or at least know a few of the people around you that way. So I think it doesn't always have to be going super far from your house or even going to the other side of base, but just making sure that you actually walk outside your house and make an effort. Because unfortunately, like, you're not going to meet anyone sitting inside your house.
It's so true. And I think sometimes it can be intimidating for some people to
Mhm.
walk into a room of strangers that you've never met before. But it is much less intimidating to just grab that lawn chair, go sit
Mhm.
outside and see who else is out and about and have that one-on-one conversation. But it
Yep.
is really those connections, that
Mhm.
way that we can begin to build community that really connects us to a place and
Mhm.
makes that place feel like a place where we belong for however long that's going to be. So I think those are really good tips. Just being able to be present where you're at, because it is so easy once you know that you're moving and where you're going, like your brain just naturally is like, okay, let me
Mhm.
think ahead, let me plan ahead, let me worry ahead, instead of
Yep.
just saying, let me be engaged and be present for as long as I'm here. And then we'll embrace the next place and start just really trying to dive in and make those connections. I think that makes such a huge difference. Well,
Yeah.
Samantha, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show, for sharing your wisdom with us. Can you let everybody know what are great places to connect with you? How can we find out about the gratitude journal, the blog, all the things?
My website is www.happinesswithsamantha.com. Company name is Happiness Unleashed. And all of my social media is at Happiness with Samantha. So it's all the same.
Awesome. That makes it easy. And to get your journal?
And to get my journal, you can get it on my website. But one of the places that I really enjoy being a part of is Spousely, and I do have a page there. They are amazing for making sure that military and first responder owned businesses are seen. And it's an entire platform that houses over 1,000 of those shops.
Which is amazing. So definitely
Mhm.
go check that out. Thank you again for coming
Mhm.
on and sharing your heart with us today. I know our listeners are walking away with more encouragement and clarity.
Thank you.
All right. I have